Everyone, I am Scott Kober, one of the co-producers of CME Palooza, and I'd like to welcome you today to our 10 years in 10 minutes segment. This is one of our special 10 anniversary features where we are looking back at the dawn of CME Palooza by catching up with some of the people who participated in our very first year of live broadcasts. So I'm joined here today by John Ruggiero, a familiar face to many people in the CME world. So John, why don't you kind of briefly introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Sure, Scott. It's such an honor to be with you today, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this. Hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is John Ruggiero. I've been in the CME industry for quite a long time, more than I'd like to actually admit. I've actually transitioned from CME into something a little bit different, which I'll mention in just one moment. I'm currently an employee at Daiichi Sankyo as an executive director on the leadership team there. Prior to Daiichi Sankyo, I worked at Genentech, and then before that, I worked in the provider world, as well as the academic and community hospital setting too. Most recently, just this year, I transitioned into leadership over the US HEOR division, Health Economics and Outcomes Research, as well as real world evidence. And what we're doing at Daiichi Sankyo, I think, is quite unique because we're trying to inch ourselves toward combining efforts when and where appropriate, where education and what I call real world learning actually fulfill a comprehensive model that actually encourages practice change that can be measured with real world data. So at some point in the near future, I'm sure I'll be talking to all of you about that.
Great. So back in 2013, our first year of CME Palooza, you presented on the topic of what do supporters do with outcomes data? What do you remember, if anything, about that initial CME Palooza experience?
Yeah, that I was 10 years younger. That's number one. And number two, it was just such a great experience to be part of something that seemed fresh, new, and exciting and casual. I think that what you built within the CME Palooza structure was something that allowed people to not take themselves as seriously as we sometimes see in so many of our regular forums. It was an opportunity for people to be really intelligent, but fun and funny and casual with each other, and an opportunity for people to have good shared dialogue with a lot of almost Socratic method style in what they do. Like, and by that, what I mean is that there was a lot of presentation and questioning and interviewing and thinking on the spot. And that's what I really appreciate about CME Palooza.
So then looking back at your presentation on this topic 10 years later, is it still relevant today? And how much has changed over the intervening 10 years and sort of in what sorts of ways?
Yeah, I think it's very relevant. So the topic, if I can summarize it in just a snapshot for everybody, was more about articulating the outcome story in an appropriate way so that all stakeholders who see the outcomes understand it for the reasons that are important to them. Whether that stakeholder is a supporter, or the stakeholder is the provider that actually provided the education, or the stakeholder might be the learner who's trying to use the outcomes as a benchmark for further practice change. Where it's relevant still today is that we still have not nailed down that articulation story. And I've been trying so frequently in our community with various people who are also trying to tell that articulation importance, because I just don't think we've gotten there yet, though we've made progress. What I think is probably relevant today is how do we just dilute the outcome story to three simple questions. Number one, what is the problem that is affecting patients, driving the need for the education? Number two, how does that problem expand across the entire health system if not corrected? And number three, how does the problem impact those who are invested in supporting the education? If we can answer those three specific questions, the outcomes all fall in line and actually tell such a nice packaged story that people will actually appreciate the reason for the education in the first place and will never question the rationale for having that education within the marketplace. That's where I think we need to get to. And I think, like I said, progress has been made, but we haven't specifically nailed it down perfectly yet.
Yeah, because I think from a provider side, I think that the issue has always been, we put together these outcomes reports that we send into our supporters, and then they sort of go in a black hole, and we don't know what happens to them. We don't know what's done with them. But I think people have gotten better on the supporter side of explaining, look, this is why we're asking for this data. This is what we're trying to do with this data. So it's not just busy work for everyone just to check off a box.
Correct. And, I mean, to be fair, Scott, to the providers who are really the drivers behind the educational programs in general, supporters we have to take some responsibility as supporters as well. I mean, we have to be willing to embrace the need to actually connect with providers and basically be humble and vulnerable and say to them, we need help articulating this. Like, meet with me, please, and help me understand the best way to articulate the message on this one slide. Help me understand how to carry your report through the organization in a very tight message. I'm relying on you to help me with this. I don't know if we do that enough. And for those that do, I really commend them. But the more that we do that, the more we can compliantly collaborate on what that outcome is so that more education can be provided. That's really what the ultimate goal is here.
Great. All right. So now it's time for your secret non-CME question. So,
Okay.
so over the years, I have heard you tell many stories about various pranks that you and your siblings played on your poor parents. So tell me about your favorite one.
I think it would have to be the St. Patrick's Day McDonald's story, because it seems to cause a lot of laughter when I share it with close friends. If everybody remembers that McDonald's will have the Shamrock Shake every St. Patrick's Day, and there was one time where my entire family in a big van went out to dinner. And it's actually quite shameful because we were adults at this time. We were not children. And we're all riding in this van. And instead of going for dessert at the local ice cream shop, we asked my parents to drive us through the McDonald's drive-through and order 8 Shamrock Shakes, which I think was really incredible that my parents actually did this. And as we're going through the drive-through, my mother, who has a very, very gentle, very sweet, and very soft voice, is ordering for us. We told her, "Oh, by the way, Mom, don't forget that the commercial on TV said that it's 2 for 1 Shamrock Shakes if you order by adding 'I'm a lucky leprechaun' to the end of your order." And so, of course, my mother does it. And of course, the person behind the counter is staring at my mother, asking her if she is crazy or something. So, and at that moment, my mother turns around to us, stares at us with the death stare, turns back to the person on the other side of the microphone, and starts screaming that her children are terrible to her. It was a great, fun experience. That's the kind of stuff that I do with my family all the time.
Okay. Can I get a Bernie?
Bernadette, burn. That's my father, by the way. Scott knows about my dad.
So great. So one more question. So then why do you think that CME Palooza is still around in 2024? What did we do right back 10 years ago, and what hopefully are we doing right today?
Yeah, going back to what I mentioned, you provided a casual outlet for us as a community to be professional but fun and casual. I think part of that had to do with people had to get creative to do this fully remotely. And this was even before COVID. So you were thinking well in advance of what was accelerated by COVID. So I really applaud you for that. But in addition to it, I kind of tell people, and this might be the wrong way to actually summarize what you guys developed, but if you think back, Scott, remember the days of the Jerry Lewis telethon for MDS?
Sure.
Okay, and it was around this time, like every Labor Day,
Hmm.
the MDS telethon would come on, and it was one of those times where you could watch the telethon at any given time throughout the day. When you knew a specific performer was coming on, or there was going to be a specific speech being made, you tuned in, and then you walked away and tuned out when you needed to. I've always seen See Me Palooza as that. It was a full day of presentations that when you found presentations that were aligned to what you were doing that current moment, you tuned in. And if you needed to step away to do other work, you stepped away and then you caught up with those things that you missed in the archives. I think that that's incredible. And it continues to be of value to so many of us who tune in every quarter or every spring and fall to
Hmm.
actually see the information that you're providing. So thank you for doing the work to make that available to us.
All right, well, great. Thank you, John. I think it was great to catch up with you as always. And while you won't see John as part of CME Palooza Fall on Wednesday, October 16th, you will see lots of people who are aging just as gracefully.
Thank you.
So you can find all the information about our fall agenda on the CME Palooza website at www.cmepalooza.com.